the dividing line, though, Richard, is got to be healing versus coping.
Right.
So, uh, cannabis is a fantastic coping mechanism, and coping does make room for healing, but
Right.
they're not the same thing. So, if you're still on cannabis 5 years, 10 years in, well, you're not healing. You got to
Mhm.
figure that piece out. Uh, but if you're going to be coping, I'd rather somebody be coping with cannabis than most of the psychiatric medications that are out there. This show is sponsored by ShopVeteran.ca and the Canadian Legacy Project. Are you a veteran who owns a business? If so, register your business for free on ShopVeteran.ca. Or, if you would like to support veteran-owned businesses, be sure to make ShopVeteran.ca your first stop shop. Thanks, everybody. Hello, all you beautiful souls. Thanks for joining me for another edition of Operation Tango Romeo, the Trauma Recovery Podcast for veterans, first responders, and their families. Today on the show, we have Dr. Richard, well, almost doctor. We have Richard Pucci on the show, and I've been chasing him for a while. We've had lots of conversations and back and forth over the years. And instead of coming on the show, he sends other people on the show. But I finally got him, the man, in person. So, Richard, thanks for joining me, man.
It's my pleasure finally get a chance to come on your program. You're right. I look back to the first time we met at a barbecue somewhere east of Edmonton with Moyne and Harvey and the boys, and we shared a steak, had a few words, and here we are. That's about 6-7 years ago, Mark. So yeah,
It's
thanks
been a
for
while,
having me
pal.
on the show.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
So you've been in the space for, well, for as long as the show has been and longer. So let's start with your service. So I read the write up on LinkedIn, but it's all kind of smushed together. So let's just break that down. You joined the CAF when, and what was your original trade?
Yeah, so I joined the CAF. It's an interesting story. I joined quite late. I was 28 years old when I joined the CAF.
A
Uh,
fossil.
yeah, I was a fossil. At that time, it was 40 years ago, 1980, 1985, I joined. And my dad was an Army guy. He was a Patricia. So I had Patricia blood in my veins. So I went through university. I had a chance to go to RMC, but I just wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready for the military culture. Long hair, wanted to do things, wanted to get my own education, pay for it on my dime, and
I
have
would
a
have thought being raised by a Patricia would have been more than enough to prepare you for anything military. I mean, having
well,
an infantry guy as a dad, that's
yeah.
sort of an indoctrination all its own.
Yeah, absolutely. We were ruled by a pay stick. So, but my dad's career was really vast. We were in Ottawa, we were in Edmonton. We did 9 years in Europe, in Zost, Germany, and it was a phenomenal upbringing because I love the military. I love being an army brat and what that brought along with it. The camaraderie, meeting people, being part of a tribe as a young kid. And there are still people I meet today that I lived with in Germany back in the 60s and the early and late 60s. So it's who we are. It's part of our genetic makeup. When you are raised in a military family. So I went on to university. I did U of A. Then I went on to UBC. I spent a bit of time there as a junior lecturer. And then I went back and studied geology. And I spent a lot of time working in northern Canada as exploration geology with a company called Trigwilla Consulting out of Edmonton. They're no longer there. It was a small company. And so while I was home on leave, we used to work kind of 6 weeks in, 2 weeks out of the Arctic. And I put in an application for the military and I got a call. I was originally wanted to be aircrew, believe it or not. I never made the air crew. I made the selection, but I had a medical condition that precluded me at the time from going air crew. So I was offered access to the healthcare industry, and I took it. So my first posting was in Calgary, 1986. I reported to the brigade as a one field ambulance, as a not so young lieutenant with 3 weeks graduated experience from CFOX. And there I was. I was commanding a platoon. And
So
that was,
how does that work? You're a lieutenant, so you had the leadership training, but did you have medical training at that time, being an officer at Field Am?
No, no, I was brought in from an operational perspective and
Ah,
administration. At the time, this is 40 years ago, Mark. Our healthcare system was a bit different back then. The focus was on administration, and whereas what we found out through RX 2000, which happened late in the 1990s, the CAF really couldn't go anywhere because they didn't have the capability from a healthcare perspective to deploy. And we found that out for the Gulf War One. We tried to mount the Sabre Brigade, and we were unable to because we didn't have enough healthcare resources to meet the need. And I was at FMC headquarters at the time in Saint Hubert as a young captain ops guy sitting in the ops center. Rick Hillier was a major then. A lot of future generals in the CAF were young staff officers such as myself. So that's kind of my background. I joined as a healthcare administrator. I hated that term; it sounded so demeaning at the time. But then we became what's known as health services officers, and we were more from the planning perspective and getting more involved with. Working with the L1s and getting their men and women ready for ready for deployments.
okay. And geez, where do we go from there? I just brain farted.
Yeah,
That like
a
never
lot.
happens on
It's
the
a lot.
show.
So quickly, I did some exchange jobs. I did 3.5 years with the British Army on exchange, and that was a wonderful experience
That's a
because,
long time. That's
yeah,
a
yeah, it
long
was
exchange. Is it
great.
normally that long?
Yeah, it was normally that long, and I learned a lot. It was a great learning experience from a leadership perspective because the British Army is the British Army, and this is back in the early '90s. So there was a different mindset back then. It was more regimental. It was more the army that you and I grew up with, and a lot of the people I worked with in the UK. A couple of years later, when I was in Kosovo, I deployed with a lot of these guys and gals as part of 7 UK Armored Brigade.
Was that your first deployment,
It was my
Kosovo?
first full deployment. Being at a staff officer level, I did a lot of TAVs, tactical assistance visits. So I spent a lot of time going into theaters for short periods of time. So I was never attached posted. I was sent in there under the TAV formatting, under the JSAT level. So I would go in 2-3 weeks, then come back out. So I'd go in and meet with the command staff, meet with the operational team to make
So before Kosovo, what short deployments did you do?
I was in. I did some time in Haiti, but Kosovo was my first big deployment. I left in early January 2000, and I returned to Canada in late June
Almost
2000.
everybody I know that did a Haiti tour, it really messed them up.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, that's I did 3 TAVs into Haiti. I was there in 2004 as part of Op Halo. That's when they had that very political uprising there, and there's a lot of shit going on the ground there. I think the country is beautiful, and there's no doubt about it. But it's a bit of a shit show, and it's a different culture from what us Canadians and Westerners are used to. The children are beautiful. They have beautiful children in Haiti. They had lack of access to water. That was the saddest thing that we saw as people. Even when I went in with the Louisiana National Guard for 2 weeks, and there's a lack of potable water for children, and that's always sad to see because they would line up at the front door, the gates every morning, looking for, we need water, water,
They
no,
just don't have the desalinization
no,
facilities.
no, and it's to them water's an extreme commodity, right? But they have access to food. Food wasn't an issue because it grows naturally there, but it was just access to water was hard, and it's a brutal environment. We saw a lot of things because our rules of engagement were quite unique and quite restricted. And you see things, and you can't just do anything about it. This one day
That's
we
probably what it is right there, the moral
yeah,
injury of you see the suffering and you can't do F all about it. I know a
no,
little bit about that.
yeah. And this one instance, we had an open clinic for the local community to come in, and they would queue up, 3 o'clock in the morning, coming in to see our docs. And this is when I was with the Louisiana National Guard, and there's probably about 100 people queued up. It was probably 95 degrees and 110% humidity, and we're just sweating out there. Haitian heat is like. And this young girl and her daughter, bumped the queue. They pushed their way to the front of the queue, caused practice with the security. Next thing I know, they haul this young girl away. They rough her up substantially, and then the little girl's left crying. Right? Where's my mom? Well, they took away and kind of beat the shit out of her. Right? So those are the type of things that Haiti was. You talk to other soldiers that have deployed there, they'll tell you the same thing. It's a very unique and very dangerous environment.
In environments like that, whether from national disaster or from war, but I think especially in war, as soon as the moorings of society are gone and anything goes,
Mhm.
anything does go. Like
Right.
wherever power can expand, it does expand. Wherever evil can expand, it does expand.
Mhm.
And it's unbelievable. As soon as you tell a group of high octane men that there's no rules and you can do whatever the hell you want, well, you see the worst of them in a hell of a hurry.
Right.
And the amount of atrocities, and it's just beyond comprehension for the unindoctrinated. Like
Yeah.
the people cannot imagine. They,
Right.
they hear the words like rape and murder,
Mhm.
but they don't understand the action. Not really.
No.
Not how brutal it gets. And like you hear words like torture, but until you see it, um, it just doesn't land. Like
Right.
you can't read it in a book, uh, and you can't see it on TV and think that you understand it. You do not.
No.
When you're there and you see it firsthand and you hear it and smell it, and see the aftermath and the look in people's eyes, that haunted look, that is something that you simply cannot understand without experiencing it. And because I think you got to feel the energy of it to really get it.
Absolutely.
And
And you hit on one word there, and it's smell. You know,
oh yeah,
and yeah, the smell is. And it's kind of a triggering thing because there's a certain smell, and it brings me back at times to walking through the Port-au-Prince Hospital in downtown Port-au-Prince, and it was a horrible environment with how children are treated in these countries. And it's very sad. And our medical people, they bless all the health services people out there that go on these deployments because they're there at the front line looking after these young kids as required, from an emergency perspective. And the same in Kosovo. It's just amazing how people treat each other, but it's the smell. You know, it's like, every time I go by a diesel truck, sometimes I think of Wainwright. So,
yeah.
it's like 30 below zero in Wainwright, corner red and brown, and somebody fires up a diesel truck. You never forget that smell as long as you live. You never
No,
forget.
and the rattle of a diesel motor,
Yeah,
that it brings me back every time.
yeah,
I was a platoon driver for a while, the MLs, and all over Croatia, high and low, every corner of that country I've been to with an MLVW hauling toxic sandbags that we got to live in.
right. Yeah. But all of these experiences, Mark, have brought me to where I'm at today in
Hmm.
my secondary career as a veteran advocate and promoting, veterans access to care. So after a phenomenal career, I had a great career. I just want people to know that I love my career. It was fantastic. I met a lot of really super people, very smart people, not only within the health services component, but outside of the health services and the combat arms and the support arms. There's always great people wearing the uniform of Canada, which I was very
What
proud.
year did you go to Kosovo?
I was in Kosovo 2000. Yeah, I was there, Roto 0.5. Yeah, so the 3rd Battalion PPCLI was over there, and then I deployed when the RCR took over. But I was with the British Army. I was at Brit 4 headquarters. So I went in as the SO2 med plans for the brigade commander. And as a matter of fact, the brigade commander was a 1-star. He was a tanker and a super guy. He went on, and don't ask me his name, but he went on to be their chief of defense staff because this guy
I'm
was a real.
surprised that was Roto Zero. I always thought Kosovo was like 96, 97
No, no, no.
when it started.
Kosovo. commenced in the summer of '99 was when
Okay.
that first. Yeah, that's when one brigade. I was with one brigade in Edmonton at the time, and it was General Leslie was the brigade commander at the time, and I
A friend of
remember.
mine was in a helicopter that was shot down in Kosovo.
Yeah, yeah, it was quite the. That was a good experience. The 6 months, 6 months plus there with the British Army, unique experience. It was we're in some pretty. It was pretty austere conditions for the contingent working out of the British headquarters. Kind of under canvas, wintertime, 30 below, no running water, no frickin' access to toilets. It was a real shit show, and it
So
was cold.
was that just another civil war like Croatia?
No, it was post that. It was more the interaction Serbia, because the Serbia borders Kosovo to the north, and Serbia wanted total access to. It was just a land grab, and so we went in there and set the peace between the Serbs and the KLA, the Kosovo Liberation Army, and they were two radical factions on the ground there, and there was still a lot of bad things going on there because
That
you
was a
know
NATO tour, though, wasn't it?
that was a NATO tour. Yeah,
Yeah, thank God.
yeah.
UN tours just suck.
Yeah. So yeah, good experience with the Brits. Had very little to do with the Canadians because they were to the east of our location, and I was in the central part of Kosovo. And yeah, it was good go. Spent a lot of time going from camp to camp, being part of SO2 plans, med plans. That is, I had a chance to interact with all of the healthcare agencies throughout the AOR, which was exciting, and we yet again met a lot of super people that some of them I'm still in contact with today.
Did you interact with the Canadians at all, or were you just?
Yeah, well, I went up there a couple of times. It was an RCR battalion, and we'd go up there. They would have kind of like beer calls, so to speak, a barbecue. So they were there. There was three other Canadians at Brit 4 headquarters. There was a Patricia officer and a log officer, so they would invite us out there for barbecues and things like that. So we would drive over to the Canadian location. But other than that, we had very little to do with them because our mission was pretty clear. I was supporting British forces, not Canadian forces.
Right.
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
that the only tour that you've done, like a full
That was
for a
my
full ride?
only full tour. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I did three TAVs into Afghanistan, and I did a TAV into Kuwait as well when they were setting up the hub back in 2013.
And then there would be. Did you get medals for any of those, or just Kosovo?
As a TAV, you're not attached posted, right? So
So, but I thought it was just days in country, like anything
no, you
over
have to be
40
part of
days or
the
something.
no, you have to be part of the TO&E, right? You just can't go into theater and get I was not against a position within the Canadian Orbat. So I was there under the auspices of a NDHQ tactical assistance visit. So the regulations are very clear. You don't qualify for a gong, which is fine with me. It was the fact that I got into theater, saw the troops inside the wire and outside the wire, and I was at least part of supporting the our cause there.
Right. Got around all the same.
Mm. I had some great times, and you know, my time in Kuwait was interesting. I was went in with a team that was looking at setting up the hub in Kuwait. For as a forward operating base for our folks in Iraq at the time. Yeah, I did some interesting things. Went to some interesting conferences, and it was a great learning experience. And like I said, it brought me to where I am today, working with Brainstem. And
So what got you into the mental health space?
well, it's kind of my when I left the forces in 2016, I wasn't well. I was suffering with extreme burnout and complications of mental wellness issues. And it took me probably the first 2 years of my retirement to really kind of get a grip on where I'm at. This is when I first met you when I was going through that process, Mark. because I met Moyne and Harvey, and we got into that cannabis world back. It was before 2018, even before legalization. I was brought on to work within a understanding a veteran's model of care for cannabis, right? And this was pre-18. It was before authorization. There was a lot of challenges there, and it was a really interesting environment because here I am, fresh out of the military, retired, and then I've been thrown into this mix of business and Wall Street people and Bay Street people trying to raise money for these cannabis companies, and it was a bit of a challenge. It was a big learning experience and interesting characters, and I did that with Moyne and Harvey for about 2 years,
What are
and
your opinions now in hindsight for the pros and cons of cannabis?
well, I was a cannabis user for a while. In that period of time when I released from the military, and it served its purpose. When I was kind of in that acute phase, couldn't sleep, couldn't do this, couldn't do that. I
Yeah.
did find the cannabis, helped me to a certain level, but then it got to the stage where it got less and less that I relied on the cannabis to support me through my challenges with mental health. And I look at alternative medicines, not so much medicines, Mark, but lifestyle choices, right? It was all about more of that holistic approach. And my wife was working for D&D at the time. She was working with the strengthening the forces environment, and that looked at sports medicine, diets, dietary nutrition, all of those things. So we put together a plan for me, and it seemed to really pay dividends, but nothing happens overnight. It's a slow process, right? And you got to work at it. Nothing comes easy in life, and getting over mental health struggles is tough. It's not easy, and you know that as much as anybody else listening probably to this podcast. So yes, used cannabis for a short period of time. Yes, it helped me through some pretty difficult times, but then it had its life expectancy with me kind of dwindled. So I went from the vaping aspect, tried the gummies, and then tried nothing. And it was a personal choice. It wasn't a medical choice. I
Well,
just
it
want.
beats the hell out of SSRIs,
Yeah,
Richard. I mean,
yeah. No, no, it does.
um,
It does.
anything that comes to you through a psychiatrist, I mean, ask them, what's the science behind this? Or what are the studies?
Yeah.
It's like actually name the study so I can read it.
Mhm.
And what you're going to find is that there aren't any.
Right.
Like there's no science behind it.
Right.
Not really. Maybe some data,
Mhm.
but even SSRIs, which is what everybody ends up on, they they have never been proven beyond the placebo effect for any more than like 2% efficacy. Like that's it.
Right.
It's unbelievable, but the placebo effect is freaking powerful.
Yeah.
So you do feel a difference from the SSRIs, and you feel like you feel like something is going on, so you think that it's helping, but you look at the actual insert on the bottle, right?
Mhm.
And it's unbelievable. Like may cause suicidal ideations or homicidal ideations as well. And it's like, well, isn't that what we're trying to avoid?
Mhm.
But this is supposed to cause it,
Right.
psychotic breaks. Whereas with cannabis, it's a hell of a lot safer. People keep talking about that you can have psychosis from cannabis. I would like to know how often that happens because I don't know how often that is. But what I do know is that I suffered from nightmares
Mhm.
unbelievably without it ever being explained to me why I was suffering from nightmares. And
Right.
it was simple, cortisol still pumping,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, I was at a heightened level all the time, whether I was aware of it or not. Even when I thought I was calm, I was not.
Right.
And so when you go to sleep, cortisol is still pumping. You're still in fight or flight, and your dreams reflect that. That's why they're horrible nightmares. It's because your nervous system is still fried. You're still on 10,
Okay.
and cannabis was the only thing that that helped because it depressed the nervous system. It chilled everything out, so that all of a sudden I'm not fighting for my life in my dreams, waking up 2 3 times a night. So for me, cannabis was freaking fantastic, and then went off it forever, and I'm back on the gummies before I go to bed at the moment.
Yeah.
But
It,
they help.
everybody has such a unique experience because of their genetic composition, and like I said, initially for a period of time, cannabis was what I needed to get me through that period of time.
Hmm.
I know a lot of my colleagues and a lot of people we see coming through our brainstem clinics are still using cannabis. So it's not a negative; it's a positive because it's what people need. It's what they need, and
Sure.
and what
The dividing line, though, Richard, is got to be healing versus coping.
right,
So, uh, cannabis is a fantastic coping mechanism, and coping does make room for healing, but
right.
they're not the same thing. So,
Mhm.
if you're still on cannabis 5 years, 10 years in, well, you're not healing. You got to
Mhm.
figure that piece out. Uh, but if you're going to be coping, I'd rather somebody be coping with cannabis than most of the psychiatric medications that are out there.
That's one of the biggest challenges. The people we see coming into our clinics is they want off medications, right? They're tired of the pills. They want off this. They want off that, and that's because they're tired. They don't want to be on pills. They don't want to. I met a young fellow in our Kingston clinic with brainstem, and he was on about 20 meds a day. Like I thought, what the fuck? How can you survive?
Yeah,
You
and
know?
probably carcinogenic,
Yeah, yeah. So.
cancer causing.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was all part of that journey. So I went through that phase, felt better, got better, and it gave me an impetus to work within the veteran community and about access to care. And being a healthcare provider for 32 years in uniform, I thought it was incumbent upon me is to meet new people with innovative solutions to help veterans have access to care. And this is what has led me to Brainstem. And I've
So,
been,
okay, so when did you get involved with Brainstem? What is it?
yeah,
Let's go into that.
I think that it's an important message to get out there, Mark, and this is why I'm so thankful you brought me on the program today. So I've been with Brainstem for over 2 years now, and I was introduced to their owner and their chief psychiatrist, Dr. Venu Karaparati. I was at a Simvar seminar here in Ottawa, kind of bumped into him, and we said, let's have coffee. And he kind of gave me his vision because at the time he only was running two clinics out of Surrey and Vancouver, BC. And he'd spent a lot of time working with first responders on the West Coast, primarily the Vancouver Police Services and the Vancouver Fire Services. So he had this inner trust and love of first enders, and he worked in the addictions world as well in East End Vancouver, which is challenging. And then he got involved with veterans through the Legion's Veterans Village, which is also in Surrey, BC. So he approached me at this meeting. He told me what he was doing with transcranial magnetic stimulation, ketamine, and some of his other advanced neurological mental health treatment programs. And he said, here's my card. Let's get on a call tomorrow because he was flying back to Vancouver from Ottawa that night. So I called Dr. Venu, and we hit it off right away. From a philosophical perspective, because he wanted to bring more of his advanced treatments to the veteran communities. He felt that like you said, people are walking around like freaking zombies with 8, 10 medications in them, and with his technology, his background, and his neuromodulation capabilities, he can help people get off those medications and see drastic improvement in their PTSD, their depression, their anxiety modalities. So we started off with that. We had two clinics, and we started to expand.
So,
Okay,
is Brainstem a combination of ketamine and this magnetic thing?
that's correct. That's correct. So
Okay,
our
so
clinic
tell me about the magnetic thing. What's it called? Because people have told me about it.
It's called transcranial magnetic stimulation.
Okay.
It's a technology that's been around for many years. There's nothing new here. It's just that it's as technology evolves, the science becomes more precise and precise. So they have these head coils that you put on your head, okay, and they're set up such that it directs magnetic pulses into your brain. It's called deep, so they go deep into your brain. That helps rewire the brain to bring it back to a kind of a homeostatic environment, right? So it kind of calms the brain down. And the protocol we're using is in line with Health Canada protocols. It's in line with Veterans Affairs Canada, and all of our treatments are covered by VAC through Medavie Blue Cross. So we use what's called an accelerated protocol. So you come in on a Monday morning, and we get you pre-approval for the veteran to have 30 treatments. So you come in Monday morning to the clinic. It's kind of a very zen environment. We want it to be focus so the veteran feels comfortable there. Prior to the veteran arriving with brainstem, they go through what's called our navigational team, which I have fellows, guys and gals out of Vancouver. They walk the veteran through the process, and I'm getting really positive feedback from veterans who have been through this process. That hey, you guys are great out there. They it's kind of like they take my hand and help me get from A to B into treatment, post treatment, and thereafter. So we do 30 sessions a week, starts at about 9 o'clock in the morning. You show up, we kind of run it on a cohort basis. So we try to bring in 4 to 5 veterans at a time because that helps build that community, because we want to bring in like-minded people to work together. And we're finding, the community that we're building is very strong. So you got 5 guys show up on a Monday morning. Most of them don't even know each other. And by Friday afternoon, they're exchanging email addresses and going out for coffee. So they do 5 sessions a day. So buddy one goes in, gets his cap put on, and he goes through the theta burst, goes back into the Zen room. There's coffee there, there's food there. We bring in lunch for the veterans.
Is that on ketamine at the same time, or how
So
does that work with the ketamine?
ketamine's a different. We'll run through TMS first, and then I'll
Okay.
walk you through the ketamine because they're two distinctive modulations, two distinctive patterns of
Okay.
healthcare requirements. So we go through the TMS, so the 30 a week, 5 a day. Okay, so at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:30, you pick up your little bag and you go home. Non-invasive. You can drive there. You can drive home. Right. It's that easy. By day 2 of the program, anecdotally and clinically, veterans are starting to show some really positive results. How did you sleep last night? Oh, I'm sleeping. How's the mood? Feeling better. Interaction with the family better. And so by day 5, and I go to here in Ottawa, I've been going to see the vets as they finish off the program on the Friday, and it's really pretty quite outstanding to see the improvement in these men and women who've gone through our program after 5 days on the accelerated program.
So tell me about the ketamine then. So the ketamine is still happens at the brainstem clinic, but it's a separate cohort.
Yeah, it's a separate cohort. Usually, we just run. One veteran comes in, they do the cohort. Our Vancouver clinic is very busy with ketamine. There's a lot of ex-operators and JTF guys living out on the West Coast, so we see a lot of them coming in there. And Dr. Venu he deals personally with every one of these guys that comes in there. So the ketamine is done separately. So we have to get pre-approval for TMS, and everything depends, Mark, on the psych evaluation that the veteran goes through with our psychiatrists. So this is a interventional psychiatry program. Everything is done under the auspices of a psychiatrist. And one interesting thing, wherever we run a cohort, there has to be a psychiatrist in the building, available to the veteran during the treatment program. That's a protocol stipulated by Veterans Affairs Canada. And
Yeah.
so you can
Even though,
imagine.
like, honestly, like, what the hell is a psychiatrist going to do?
Well,
They write prescriptions. That's all they do.
yeah.
So, like,
Well,
what's the actual? Do you think there's an actual need for that, or is this just a hoop that you have to jump through to satisfy VAC?
yeah, it's a hoop we have to do. I'm not a clinician, so whether it's useful or not, I don't know. But the clinic, the psychiatrist meets with every veteran before the treatment. So they have a 20-minute face to face, just to make sure, have you changed your medications? Have you done anything different since our last time we talked? Because it's part of the protocol. And then throughout the day, the psychiatrist drops in to see the veterans, make sure, Bloggin's you okay? Any issues? Do you have any questions? So I think the veterans find it very comforting to know that there's a psychiatrist there willing to meet with them, and it gives me a lot of comfort. It gives the veteran a lot of comfort, and I think it's a bonus. It's expensive. I got to hire a psychiatrist, sit in there for 7 hours a day to watch over these veterans, but it's part of the protocol. And from a provincial regulation too, they have the same policy as well. So it's just not VAC. So the province of Ontario, you need a psychiatrist in there. BC, same thing. Alberta,
So
same thing.
so you have a K number from VAC. You got a
Yeah.
diagnosis of PTSD, and is that all you need? And is it totally covered, or is there still
So,
something
so
coming out of the veteran's pocket?
no, nothing comes out of the veteran's pocket. Not a thing. So you need a PTSD, a K number, PTSD diagnosis with a either a depressive state, a treatment resistance depression, which means you've tried two other medications that failed. That's the protocol that we have to follow. So no, the veteran doesn't pay us.
So they're positioning you uh, as a last ditch effort, as a Hail Mary, as opposed to the primary
Well,
treatment.
there's
Oh my God, bureaucrats.
yeah. It's interesting you bring that up because Dr. Vanu did a business case for BC Health because he feels that this intervention should be a first line treatment, right?
Of course it should.
It should be a first line treatment.
Because you can actually show efficacy. Do you know what the
Yeah,
efficacy
by Friday,
is of the
yeah,
OSI clinic?
yeah.
12 to
So
16%.
yeah,
That's their success rate at the OSI clinic.
yeah. Well,
So are you telling me that you're a little bit better than between 12 and 16% success rate?
so right now in from the medical the data we're gathering, okay, and this is clinical data, we're seeing anywhere from 42 to 63% in better remission rates in PTSD depressive states.
Is that just from the magnets, or is that all, or a
That's that's
combination?
that's just from the TMS.
Okay.
So that's pretty impressive right there. And I can give you, I got fucking reams of anecdotal statements from veterans that have been through, the treatment program, and it's impressive. I'm not going to sit here and read them all off to you, but they're fucking impressive, and people are feeling better.
But so that's between 42 and what?
63%.
So 42 to 63% from the magnets, the TMS. Okay, so let's talk ketamine.
So ketamine is when a veteran gets into the brainstem system, they do the psychiatric evaluation, and based upon the client, the veteran, and the psychiatrist, they'll come up with a model of care to best meet the needs of the client. Okay, so it's not a medical decision, it's not a veteran's decision, it's a joint decision between the veteran and the practitioner, the psychiatrist. Some veterans only recommendation is TMS. For some veterans, it's the option of having the ketamine as well.
So it's not the
Right.
veteran's choice,
Well,
like
he can. The recommendation is the veteran can recommend, but the decision is a medical decision at the end of the day. It's a
okay.
medical clinical decision.
So if a veteran, so you're not going to meet the veteran where they're at then. So if somebody comes to your clinic and just says, "I want ketamine," the answer is no. You got to jump through these hoops first, and these other things have to fail first.
I wouldn't say it's jumping through any hoops. It goes through, once the veteran comes to our clinic, they go through the navigational process where they'll go through a psychiatric evaluation as every patient does, and it
Mhm.
will be determined that doc, I've tried this, I've tried that. They'll go through the whole history of this veteran from cradle to grave, so to speak, of what happened with his PTSD, his depression, what he's tried, what has worked, what hasn't worked, and then they come up with a clinical plan. So TMS, hey, Poochie, this would be the best for you. Ketamine, recommend that, but let's do TMS first. as our first line of support. Because if you look at the literature, and if you go online to ChatGPT or go online to Google, Mark, if you type in TMS and ketamine, it's such a synergy between the two that the wellness outcomes are even better. And what we're finding, because we're doing this trial in our Halifax clinic, so we've paired up, and this is part of the community we're building with like-minded providers. There's a psychotherapist in Halifax. He's an ex-guy. He's a log officer, served for many, many years. Good guy, despite he wears an Air Force uniform. And so I met him over a beer in Halifax. And I said, well, why don't we try something different? Because he does group psychotherapy, a very good group psychotherapy with veterans. I say, you bring your boys into our Halifax location. Concurrently, you do psychotherapy, and we'll grab bloggins one at a time and put them in the TMS room, give them their theta burst. They go back in, continue with that dynamic of the group psychotherapy, and we'll run a week like that. And I got to tell you, we're going to be publishing a paper for SIMVR this year showing the outcomes of even if you bring in psychotherapy group plus TMS equals even better outcomes.
Yeah. But you have to get there eventually. You can't just go in there as a first line of defense. It's the last line of defense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's it.
Well, hopefully that gets better. There's been enough at the Standing Committee of Veterans Affairs. There's been enough testimony, say about psychedelics in particular, that hopefully that they can fix that. There's still zero access to ibogaine, which is a bummer. So I know that from the work that I've done in the world of psychedelics, brain injuries also get fixed. I mean, post-traumatic stress injury is an actual injury, changes the structure of your brain, but concussion, TBI, are those affected with the TMS? Because it should be affected by positively by the ketamine.
Yeah, well, there is evidence out there. There is evidence out there to support TMS in TBI. Excuse me. And so I've approached the Legacy Foundation to let them know that we're offering this capability. I've met with some of their senior planners. I know Tim. I've met him many times, and I'm just waiting for a second round of discussions between their clinical team and our clinical team to look at doing kind of a proof of concept trial or doing some sort of trial in one of our clinics across the country. We're going to have 10 clinics up and running by the end of August of this summer. So we would love to do some work with TBI. If you look at some of the evidence down in the VA, they're using TMS for brain injuries as well for TBI. What I'm working right now, or our brainstem is working with Stronghold Wellness, and I think Stronghold Wellness and Gordo Hurley, and all of those folks. And we're desperate to find a venue to do a study with TMS and operator syndrome, which involves the TBI and concussed brain. So yeah, we're talking about it, but this takes money, and it's expensive to get these research studies up and running. We just commenced a research study off the West Coast with PTSD and chronic pain, because every veteran suffering with PTSD and chronic pain
You're tapping your table a lot, and it's coming through the microphone.
Banging my fist. Sorry, man. We're running this new study, and the study just launched. It's being funded by the BC Yukon Legion. They gave us a generous funding. We're putting 30 veterans through what's called the Anchor program, first of its kind. And we're in the process of recruiting now. I want to send you my poster, and if you could put it up there to your folks, because this is an opportunity to be veterans part of a research funding a research study. We veterans talk that we need more support. We need more support. Well, here's an opportunity to veterans to get involved. Okay, get involved in the science, get involved in wellness outcomes. So I need 15 more veterans in the BC area to come out and do this study with us. It's using TMS, and that's what we're after right now for chronic pain, PTSD and chronic pain. And the next
Where
step,
in BC?
It's at our Surrey location. It's
Surrey.
yeah. So BC Yukon Legion, they funded it, but one of the stipulations was it has to be for BC based veterans.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
So is
understandable.
that coming out of the Poppy Fund?
It's coming out of the Poppy Fund. Yeah.
Well, good. Because I've been discovering that there is millions and millions of dollars locked up in the Poppy Fund that is not being accessed. My own personal Legion in Stettler, there's
Mhm.
97 grand just sitting there. And when I quiz them on it, it's because, well, we can't get permission to give it to anybody. It's like,
Right.
well, that's not good. So
Well,
I'm
I
thinking
tell
this
you
is
what,
probably a national issue.
it is a national issue. Okay, and I take exception to that because
Oh,
what's
it's
happening
horrible.
is
Yeah, it's like,
so,
okay, what's
so
the point of the Legion then? Because the point of the
yeah,
Legion is supposed to be the Poppy Fund, but it's
right.
locked up and they're not able to use it.
Yeah, well, they do use it. Okay, that money is going
Wait,
to
wait,
fund research, but it's going to SIMFR research,
it's
right?
going to what
It's
research?
SIMFR. You know, it's going to academia to fund their research.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, no, because here we are, a private company, and we're willing to do this research. We've put in proposals. We had another proposal to do another PTSD study with depression and ketamine, and we went through the normal national framework. You know, there's a process online with the Legion, right? So I talked to the Legion folks at SIMFR last year here in Ottawa. They said, "Yeah, go online, go online." So you go online, and I was working with the because we work with a foundation, the Legion's Veterans Village Foundation, and Trevor Green, you know Trevor Green, his wife is the he was the one that was hit with the axe in the back of the head in Afghanistan years ago, and his wife is the chair of this foundation. And they've been funding a lot of our research from a brainstem perspective. So Debbie and I, wonderful person to work with, we went online and we started this. And you have to apply for a pre-submission interview. So we got the interview, and it turns out that there's no funding available because they earmarked the funding for other organizations such as SIMVER's academic research, and this to me is wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I
It's
agree.
wrong.
I mean, the Poppy Fund should be going directly to supporting veterans directly, and that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
But what I've found so far is that if I want those funds to go to the Veterans Association Food Bank or Canadian Legacy Project or any of the others that I know provide frontline help, Homes for Heroes.
yeah,
Um, it's like pulling teeth to get
yeah,
that money out of
yeah,
those funds,
yeah.
which I'm working on. I've been
I,
inviting people from the Legion on the show. Haven't
right.
got a response yet, but I'm inviting Dominion Command on, the president, the
Right.
head of this, the head of that.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to crack that nut.
Yeah, and good luck. Okay, good luck because cracking that nut is it would be very, very advantageous to people out there. And one of the challenges we face is because we're a for-profit organization. I got to pay clinicians. I got to keep the lights on in clinics. I got to pay rent. Lease payments. So it's even an added challenge for Brainstem to gain access to some of these dollars. That's why we work with the foundation, because the money flows through the foundation then to us as the exporter, and we deliver the care and the research for the research foundation.
So I'm still unclear. How are you using the ketamine? So that's a separate. That's a separate
Yeah,
core. Like that's a separate deal. So is it ketamine assisted therapy? Then talk to me about that.
it's just ketamine assisted therapy. That's what we do. Ketamine is they usually do 2 sessions a week for about a 4 week period. So you go in, you do the ketamine infuse. Right now we're using Spravato as a nasal spray. Historically, Dr. Vinu's been using IM intramuscular, which he prefers, but VAC has come up with a new policy that they'll only approve Spravato. I'm not a clinician, so I can't talk about the merits of IM versus Spravato, but I hear people prefer the IM because it's faster and it's more lasting. So that's our ketamine program. It's about 2 sessions a week, 4 to 6 weeks, and yet again, you combine that with TMS, ketamine. The end product is pretty impressive. Or people that go in just for ketamine, the end product is very, very substantial as well.
Well, what are your efficacy numbers for the ketamine assisted therapy?
Uh, I'm not that familiar with, I know they're good, but they're even better with TMS. But I don't, I could Google and find those numbers for you, but they're impressive as well.
When you
But
put them all together,
it's very impressive.
are you cracking 80%?
I don't know if I would want to give you a number on that, Mark, because I don't want to give disinformation to you and the people listening. So I'd
Yeah.
rather say nothing than give you something that's wrong. But clearly, anybody can type in ChatGPT, TMS, ketamine, and you look at efficacies or outcomes, and it'll give you that number.
Have you tried it yourself?
I've tried the TMS, right? So I'm at a stage in my mental wellness. I'm no longer acute. I'm chronic. So I wouldn't qualify for a full course of TMS, but I've had several sessions so that you as a veteran comes to me and says, "How was it?" I can tell you what it was like, and I've done the training. So I'm a trained TMS technician, so to
But you
speak.
haven't done the ketamine.
I haven't done the ketamine because I wouldn't qualify today for it, right? Because I don't have acute symptoms, right? Right. I couldn't present as, yes, I'm suffering with PTSD. I still have nightmares. I still have this. I'm depressed. I have anxiety. So it would, I just wouldn't qualify for that.
Right. If you, that's unfortunate because unless you actually experience it yourself,
Mhm.
it's it's one of those things like we were talking earlier about understanding a war zone. Well, you have to experience it firsthand, and it's the same with psychedelics for sure. It is not something that can be understood without firsthand experience for sure.
Well, ask me if I tried psychedelics when I was in university in 1975, and I'll give so when I went to UBC, magic mushrooms used to grow on the grounds of UBC, and it was a common thing. Everybody picked mushrooms,
Yeah.
so anecdotally, I can tell you, yes, I've tried psychedelics. However, at the end of the day, not in a controlled environment. But that was many many years ago. But would I like to try ketamine? Absolutely. But clinically, a physician would not sign off on me, you know, going through the treatment program because I don't have any clinical symptoms.
Okay. So, what are the plans for Brainstem? Like, how many existing locations? Which locations are coming up? Where is it at?
Well, Brainstem's really exciting organization where Venu's been around for about 10 years now, doing this TMS and ketamine capability. So we expanded into to Kingston, Perth, Ontario, with the kids down there. We've got a site here in Ottawa, and we've got a site in in Halifax. We're opening in Calgary in the latter part of April this month. And then we have plans for July and August in Markham, Ontario, and London, Ontario. So we'll have 10 operational clinics supporting veterans across the country by the end of August of this year.
So, for the audience, it's Brainstem, not STEM.
It's STIM,
So,
STIM.
brain STIM
Yeah, STIM.
.ca.
Yeah, .ca. And the good thing is we are a clinically led organization, but we're veteran informed. All right. So all of our programs, and if you look on our website, we have a really nice veterans program. And every veteran that comes into our organization receives an email from me. And I send them a note, welcome them to the program, welcome them to Brainstem. If they have any questions from A to B to C to getting into the treatment or thereafter, they're to write me. And I get a lot of emails from guys and gals across the country that are waiting to go into the program. Some have reservations. Hey, yeah, no problem. I can jump on a call with this person, or I write back to them with direction. What's interesting, I've seen a few names of people that used to work for me over the years, pop up on the screen. and all of a sudden we're on teams together talking. So it's a very veteran friendly space with incredible outcomes. And like I said, I've been with them over 2 years, Mark, and it's a wonderful group of people. We're just getting out the door. If you look at our LinkedIn pages, it's getting more and more likes. We're getting more and more good marketing out there, and this is the big challenge I have as the VP Veterans Engagement, is engaging veterans and letting them know that there's this outstanding capability that is covered under their K number that we can get access to. And the good thing about us is it's access to care, and we have rapid access to care. So I can, I have 16 people lined up for the Calgary clinic already, and we're getting them through their assessments as we speak, so that when the clinic opens, we'll have guys and gals lined up to go. Not waiting 6 months, not waiting a year. I can get you fairly quickly into the program. And if you got a problem, you call me. I'll sort it out. I'll help that veteran. Whatever I do, I will make sure that veteran has great access to that care.
All right, Richard, I think we're there, brother.
Okay. So
brainstim.ca, brainstim.ca to get a hold of Richard Pucci. Check out what's going on there. Make yourself an appointment and march forward. Anything you need to add there, Richard?
Well, next time I'll be at the Calgary opening, and hopefully you can come by and we could do dinner. I think I'll owe you dinner.
All right, man. That sounds good to me.
Okay.
I like to eat.
I know. So do I. Some good Alberta beef.
All right. Stay on the line, Richard.
Okay. Thank you.
You're listening to Operation Tango Romeo, the Trauma Recovery Podcast. Please, if you find any value whatsoever in what you just heard, share like the sugar bear, because sharing is caring.